All right, so I'm looking at Coin Telegraph, y'all, and so there is a dispute on whether a stablecoin issuer, you know, even with the Genius Act, right, passed into legislation for the issuance of stablecoin. Now, the stablecoin companies would have to have a license, right? It says, and this is it says a new stablecoin license under the laws would limit a crypto firm's activity to only issuing stablecoin. But Payne said that pretty much every stablecoin issuer in the U.S. issuing under U.S. law right now engages in activities outside the scope of that license, right? So the activities would be uh, basically the use of the stablecoin nationally, like as if it were the United States dollar. All right. So he said a stablecoin issuer would need state level money transmission licenses. Let me repeat that. He said a stablecoin issuer would need state level money transmission licenses to operate nationally, even with the new Genius Act license, creating an incentive for stablecoin issuers to apply for a national trust bank charter with the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. So basically, my point is this: these are licenses to do something that would otherwise be illegal. Let me break that down. You only need a license to do something that is illegal. All right. So, say you come across a policy enforcer, a policeman. Does he not have a license to carry a firearm? Why is that? Because a firearm is illegal. When you're driving a vehicle, right? When they pull you over, what is the first thing they ask you for? Driver's license. Second, registration. Right? A driver's license is a license to do something that would otherwise be deemed as illegal. It's wrong. It's wrong. But it's right to travel, be able to travel. That's a right. Right? But when you're driving a motor vehicle, what is a motor vehicle? A lot of people get the definition wrong because you think, oh, it's my car, my truck. No, it's not. A vehicle is basically a semi, like tractor truck, like a trailer, like a semi 18 wheeler, something like that, right? That's used for commercial purposes. That's what that is. And your private conveyance is something that you have purchased, and it's out of the reach of the government. What do I mean by that? There's people who understand what their rights are, and they apply those rights whenever they sign any agreement. That agreement always goes in their favor because they understand that they're operating in a private capacity and not as a agent. Now, when you register your vehicle, you basically telling the state at the Department of Motor Vehicles and that's issued through the Department of Transportation. You're telling them that, okay, I'm registering my vehicle to you. They are the actual owners, and you are just what they call the legal owner, because the actual owner is private, but he's got you contracted with him, and he's got your vehicle contracted under him, right? Who is the DOT controlled by? A separate arm of the federal government. Yeah. And the same ones that print the money and everything else, and have the central bank and, the International Monetary Fund, because these are their assets. That's why when policy enforcers come through and you ain't got that license, or you break what they call a traffic infraction, they can take what you thought was yours because you didn't read the fine print, you didn't read the contract, you didn't read uh, the law. All right. So I started delving into actual law, which is the scriptures. You know, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. You know, all the way through the New Testament. I learned about what usury is. Deuteronomy 28. You know, it's interest, and who can apply the interest, and who benefits from interest, and why the interest is being done the way it's done in this so-called society. You know, society is a social experiment, a club, and you ain't in it, but it's spiritual. This is their belief system, their faith. You know, they say there's a separation of church and state, but the state is an administrative arm that operates in trust with both beneficiaries and custodians. The custodians have turned into beneficiaries over time. Trust agreements, binding agreements, aka bonds, under the Social Security Administration, 501c3 charters. These are all ways and tools to get that money that you earn, that you work for, out of your pocket and back into theirs, and swiftly so. You know, there's a lot of value in what they do that benefits them and keeps you poor. All right, so those that are disproportionately affected are the so-called Negroes, Native Americans, and Latinos, right? Whom attended the most sorely funded schools in the United States. You know, old books, out of date computers, low wage teachers, the lowest wage per capita teachers. So they're not really interested in your education. A lot of them. Some of them are. They actually would take a concern in children, in our children, and you know, and more than likely they'll look like them. I'll just say that. They'll take a genuine interest and use the tools that they have to make sure that that child or the children get what they need. And still, you still have to battle with the curriculum. That's a battle right now. It's been going since the late 1800s, man, with the advent of the Board of Education and how that was all designed and set up. You know, I believe the famous quote is, "I want a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers." And you wonder why most people who go to school for 12 years only end up, an employee of someone, and not an owner. And why the 1%, 2%, they send their children to private education. And they learn about actual finance. They learn about the many codes and statutes in the law, right? And which gives them an advantage over the other children, the so-called Latinos, Native Americans, the so-called Negroes here in the United States. This is what's been going on. You know, this is why they wanted, like, the push for desegregation and integration. It hurt us more than it helped us, because even with that being done, it didn't help our people, because they were still redlining, so they were still underhanded and codified red tape that prevented you from living in a certain area and attending a certain school. And then, you know, there's the 400-year economic advantage of slavery and benefit of slavery that benefited them. The same ones that benefited from that then, their offspring and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they're still benefiting from that advantage. And the narrative has always been, these people, they need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and work. That's pretty ironic coming from a people, and pretty hypocritical from a people who depended on the labor of others, and force them into that. It sounds very, very hypocritical, you know, and they, have the nerve to turn their nose up at anyone, right? When their financial means, you know, it's shameful, you know. So, yeah. But I digress. But this whole, you see how that went from stablecoin issuer licenses being illegal to, you know, talking about the law, right? So these stablecoin, it's going to be a challenge for them to get there. But, you know, it might be that it just appears that way, because I do believe that even the officer of comptroller of currency and the traditional banks and the credit unions are in on this whole transfer of wealth. That's what I believe, in my humble opinion, and I have a right to my opinion, based upon current events, past events, and more than that, prophecy. So it's what they call political theater, policy theater, but they all have the same agenda: for world domination, and to subject those that they deem less than. They want to deem us irrelevant and basically eradicate the people through financial means, because everybody, is, for the most part, dependent upon the United States dollar or money in general, and they know that. That's why it was so important to stick with agriculture. But as time progresses, the people, are their senses are dulled by distraction, forms of entertainment, internet, video games, sex, murder, movies, things of that nature. Anything to distract you from what is most important, which is sustaining your livelihood and through your agriculture, growing things, trading with others, community, right? Your community, your neighbors, the people that look like you, that are concerned with your well-being. But that has gone out the window through various mediums, and these mediums are like a tarot card reader or somebody that practices witchcraft. These mediums are a distraction, and they are there to keep you disillusioned, keep you docile, keep you dumb, keep you subjected, keep you whipped, keep you poor, keep you disenfranchised, keep you cursed. But where there is light, you can see your way through the darkness. And that light is the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, that give to you liberally. But if you are bogged down with those things that I just mentioned, it's harder to pull yourself up out of it, but not impossible. This takes a redirection of thought, process, and patterns, habits. Some of those habits are hard to break. Some of them are easier. You got to crawl before you walk. I heard, don't look at the mountain that you have to climb. Just take it one step at a time, and eventually you will get there. But as long as you put forth the effort, you will be blessed in your endeavors. All right? So it's just a positive word for today. All praise, all glory to the Most High, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. That's the correct names in the Paleo Hebrew. Not the bastardized English language that we utilize by force, coercion, and duress. All right, so with that being said, y'all, to the hopefully elect only, because that word is for y'all. Shalom.